Good morning. My name is Reverend Leslie Goodwin. I'm one of your senior ministers here at New Vision Center, along with Reverend Karen Lewis. And it is our honor to welcome you, whether this is your very first time in the room, you're visiting from another center, or you come here every single Sunday, or everything in between, and that goes double for you all as part of the online campus. I have no idea how you figured out how you got here on time with the time zone change thing. We're rebels in Arizona. We will not. And yet, here we are. We've all made it. So this week begins our final seasonal theme for the year. So to catch up everybody who may not be aware of this and to remind everybody that is, we've been working on an annual theme called The Spiritual Hero's Journey. And following that basic monomyth pattern that was laid down by Joseph Smith and has been added to by a lot of philosophers and added different aspects, including the way that impacts the divine feminine as well as the divine masculine. How that patterning works out as we walk through our individual adventures in our lives and create the life that we're seeking to create. And so we've gone through this year bit by bit, we started the year with picking something that we would like to accomplish or become or walk out differently in our life. And we've let these phases of the spiritual hero's journey carry us through and help us find a context with which to illustrate our advancement. So we reach the end here. Our season is called Celebrating Freedom. And where we're at on the spiritual hero's journey is demonstrated right here. We're at the place where we get the gift and then carry it back with us into the known world, the original world, the regular world, leaving the land of the extraordinary transformation. And then, like we know, Frodo and all the merry hobbits, they go back to Hobbiton, right? They don't stay on Mordor. They go back. Harry Potter doesn't stay in the woods where he's searching for Horcruxes. He eventually makes it back to Hogwarts, back to magical life. We always end up back where we were before, but we are not who we were before. So our next few talks are going to be about finding the gifts. Today's talk is seeing the gift, integrating it into who we are now, and then going home changed. How do we show up at home different than we were before? So that'll just be a nice, easy November, December, right? And certainly doesn't have anything to do with the fact that many of us will go home on holiday to meet family who might not have been privy to our changes over the last few years, right? It's funny that no matter how separated out from what is going to be happening in the world, Reverend Karen and I and the theme team are, no matter how much we can't know, because we plan like a year in advance, how exactly right it seems to always land. It's the most interesting thing. I see Bill Sneed nodding. He's been on that team. It's very fun. So today we're going to talk about the gift. Perhaps you have heard, "Well, I'm so sorry that your leg fell off. I'm sure you will find a gift in it." Now, I'm a bit of a smart hiney, so I would probably be like picking up the leg and shaking it to see if I can get a gift to come out. None has never fallen out. There's no jewelry hidden in there, just cupcakes. So what are we even talking about when we say there's a gift in every experience, there's a gift for us? What are we talking about? What aren't we talking about? And how do we begin to find and integrate those gifts? So there are two kinds of gifts. I'm going to back up for a moment. Let's hear what Ernest Holmes has to say on this. In Mind and Success, Man's Place in Creation, Ernest Holmes wrote, "Each person has been given the freedom to discover the power of God within. Once we know we can have the same creative power found in the universal, then we can go about using them in conscious cooperation with the one who created us. This knowledge and understanding is the great gift of God to us." So if we take that apart a little bit, that's a lot of fancy words, right? Oh, Ernest, and your fancy words. We have the freedom to discover the power of God within. This implies that these gifts, or at least the basis of these gifts, were with us, in us, before we started the journey. This is important. We have the freedom to discover them or not. I think we all know times that we have claimed that freedom and times we have not claimed that freedom. When we recognize fully that the energy that set the stars in motion, the energy that created calculus, that giggle, that's how I feel when I try to do calculus too. No. The energy that whispers over each blade of grass to grow, that same energy is operating in and through and as us all the time. When we recognize that, we can start deciding which of those attributes we wish to emphasize and pull out and own those gifts with the full power of the divine. But there's a lot we have to understand and recognize about the nature of the universe and the nature of ourselves for that to work, right? Because it's a pretty big leap from God is good and God has everything to you can fly. But birds can fly and God made birds. And are you with me? And yet, how do we get to the place that whatever it is that we feel is impossible for us no longer feels impossible for us? That is the great gift. The process of that claiming is the great gift of God to us. So there are a couple different kinds of strengths that we encounter over our spiritual hero's journey. A couple of different kind of gifts. The first kind of gift I want to talk about is learning to appreciate the aspects of ourself that we've never recognized as valuable before. We are each created absolutely unique, yes? We're one in the one of the divine, made out of God stuff. Right? These are taglines from previous talks we've had recently. If anybody's like, everyone's nodding. Yes. That's their way of saying, we did our homework, Reverend Leslie. Yes. One in the one. God is only good. Everything's available. I am created of that. And in theory, this beautiful little walkway I've illustrated should land at, so I am freedom of God in action, and I can do and be anything. Right? Does it always? No. Well, that's not fair. Checking my math. Calculus lady understands. Somehow, we do that little dance. And we land at, well, I'm good at these things, whatever these things are. I'm good at writing, or I'm good at arranging flowers, or I'm good at making tremendously wonderful meals, or I'm good at creating systems that work and are replicatable. And that makes life easy for people who need those kinds of systems. And we can generally admit, I'm good at that. Yeah? Everybody got something that they're willing to admit they're good at? Everybody got something that they're willing to admit that they're probably a little better at that than your typical person? Yeah, I got some. Anybody got some that they are willing to admit that they are really noticeably significantly different than the typical person on this one thing? Really? Come on, right? Okay. Most of us have like that one thing, right? So I would say this is the gift that has always been. But are we trained as small children to think, I am such a good, I'm trying to think of something, I can make anything into an art project. I mean anything. It would be a fun challenge one of these days. I make everything aesthetic and beautiful and cool and fun. Am I trained to walk around as a small child and be like, I'm an aesthetic goddess. I'm the princess of beauty. No. In fact, my parents were like, shh. Sit down, Leslie. We're told things like, Oh, well, you don't want to make anybody else feel badly. Everybody else has their things too. Or my favorite, well, don't you just think you're important? Whoa. And that one sticks in the back of our own head, and then we say it to ourselves, right? Don't you just think you're something special? Yes! Literally created by God the way you are with the attributes you have because they're needed on the earth. Are you special?
Yes.
And then we do this thing. Man, I'm calling me on it every bit as much as I'm calling any of you on it. We do this thing where we say, well, that's not that big of a deal because it's easy to me. It's not a big deal. I'll just whip it up. It's not a thing. I can only raise this eyebrow, so I've got to turn my body. We dig into this deeply wretched societal belief that in order for something to be valuable, it must be difficult. Nothing worth doing is ever easy, right? If I could blast one phrase out of existence, it would be that. Because it teaches us that our gifts, our naturally given gifts, are inherently not valuable simply because they are given to us by the universe, the arbiter of that which is valuable. And because we don't suffer, they don't matter. Join me in the distress around this concept. No. I am one in the one. I love reusing slides from other talks. I am one in the one means I am created the way the universe needed me to be created for the highest and best of life. And I say me not because I'm any different than any of you. It's just I'm the one talking about me. And I feel a little weird being like, you are one in the one. It just feels a little... Celeste is all, okay. I mean, sure, yeah. We are each uniquely created because this is what the universe needs. And if we think we must struggle and slave and be beaten down for our efforts to have any value or for what we give to have any value, we're literally saying, nice gift, God, do better next Christmas. What if we just opened up to the idea that who we naturally are, because of who we naturally are, is the gift, and then feel into where that can take us? I know a lady who did that. You might know her too. This is her picture. You might have heard of her. Her name is Oprah. She had a challenged childhood. She went through quite a lot. She's been very vocal about it. She went through multiple kinds of abuse from multiple different family members, kind of got shuffled around. There was divorce, and it was in an era where it wasn't as easy for a single mom to take care of a child, so she went to grandparents, she went to aunts and uncles. And by the time she reached her early teens, she at this point is living with her dad, and her dad kind of sat her down and was like, okay, you've had some real rough breaks and you've had some good breaks. And you have a moment right now where you get to decide who you're going to be. What is your gift? What is your great gift? And she said she didn't have any. I don't have any great gifts. And he said, try again, baby girl. And she said, I don't know. I care about people. I'm interested in people. That's all I got. That's why I have friends. I'm interested in people. I care about people. And he said, we can work with that. And she turned that into being an interviewer. You have to be empathetic with people and care about them and be interested in them to interview them. And she was such a good, empathic, caring person that she became the first African-American billionaire ever. If you ask her what her great gift is now, Today, she says there are two. She is still that empathic, caring about people, interested in people person, and she will speak her truth out loud. Those are her two gifts. One of them came to her just inherently. It just grew out of the life that she lived from the inside out, that empathy, that caring for people. The other one actually came from the second category of gifts I want to talk about, and that is the strengths that we uncover along the trials. So some of it just comes out of us fully formed. Like I was drawing as an infant. Like some people are just like that, right? You hear about a 2-year-old who climbs up and plays piano. We all had things that we naturally do. And then there are the skills we develop because of what is happening around us. She learned to speak her truth because she kept being in situations where she was told not to, and it didn't feel right. She was told, you have a face and a body for radio. Nobody wants to look at that, right? She was told, nobody wants to sit and watch 1 hour of you talking to one person. That's boring, 15 minutes at the most. Nobody wants to hear that. And she was like, I want that. I want to hear somebody talk for an hour and really hear what they have to say. I cannot be the only person in America who is interested in this. And over and over and over again, she spoke her truth. And you know what she found out? If you get a reputation for speaking your truth and standing your ground, you know what people start doing? Giving in. They start listening to you. They start treating you like you're someone whose voice deserves to be heard. You know why? Because you think your voice deserves to be heard. Well, check that action out. So often we think, can I have the spiritual hero's journey slide up? So often we hit this part, the trials, the failures, and we think that's the story, that is actually that. But we hit all of these trials along the way, and with each trial we uncover and gain skill sets that will carry us through our biggest adventures. Oprah learned to stand up for herself. She learned to trust that her intuition was worth hearing. And she learned that if she said it often enough, people started to believe her. Of course, it also helped that she became really, 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 really successful because her intuition was right. What she was claiming wasn't just her truth, it was the truth. There were people who wanted that kind of a format. There were people who wanted to look at someone on a screen who looked more like them than a Barbie doll or a supermodel. She was right. In the spiritual heroes gifts, we often go back to, pop culture references or mystical stories. So I think of this uncovering the strengths over time as like, Harry Potter didn't know in book 1, movie 1. When Draco Malfoy threw that remember-all down, poor Neville, his arm's broken. He's seen Madame Pomfrey. He threw that remember-all down, and Harry hopped on that broom and dove. He'd never been on a broom. He didn't know he could do that. And I imagine in that moment, Harry Potter thought that was his grand adventure, because holy rabbit, that would be my grand adventure. But 3 books later, when... That's right, Marty, 3 books later. 3 books later, when he has to get around dragons, what does Professor Moody tell him? Go to your strengths. What do you know how to do? I know how to fly. So he used that same skill in a totally different situation to get that dragon egg safely. Simba, when he's Hakuna Matataing around the jungle, Hakuna Matata, right? He's thinking he's blowing off his responsibilities, hanging out with Pumbaa and Timon and eating grubs and hanging out. But why did they want him there? Because the lion scared away anybody who would mess with them, right? He didn't feel like it was being scary, but his mere presence was a protective aspect. He was learning to protect that which mattered to him. When did this become important? When he needed to go save Pride Rock. He didn't know he was practicing, but he had been. He had uncovered this powerful protector energy within himself, that when the chips were really down and somebody had to save those lions, he had the skills, he had acquired the gifts. It's really important that we take a breath and a pause here and say that what I am not saying is, God put me through this to teach me the lesson. I'm not saying that. Why? Because that implies predestination. That implies God cooking up a plan to make something bad happen to you or your loved ones so that you can learn a lesson. And how awesome does that feel? No. In religious science, we don't believe in predestination. We don't believe that the divine wants anything from us specific other than to express the fullness of who we really are, our full divine goodness. Now, that can be true, that no, God is not out there setting traps for us. See if we can wiggle our way out. But there is some truth to the statement that there is always something good to be learned from whatever happens. It wasn't done to us so we would learn the lesson, but we can choose to excavate whatever happens to find the good thing. Now, does finding the good thing mean it's okay that the bad thing happened? No. Feel where you're at on that. Over time, maybe, and often it can help us find some peace with it all. But it's not like accepting the good means you are paying the toll with your loved one's suffering. That can be something, that mind construct can be something that keeps us from even being willing to look at any good that comes forth. It's all bad. There's no good, the end. And I'd love for us to just shake off the need to have that all tangled together. It's so cultural, and it's in there. Pull it out of your head, pull it out of your belly if you need, and just let it go. We don't need that anymore. We are meaning-making machines by nature. So this is a healthy way we can find positive meaning in whatever has occurred in our life, is to look for and recognize the way we either came to appreciate the gifts that were always within us that we just didn't know we should value, or have honed and built as we went through the process. Those gifts and skills become who we are moving forward. Have you ever gone through something and learned something really well, and then after a while you go do something else, and then you just kind of completely forget what you learned on the other thing? That's what I like to call my French degree. They tell you what's going to happen. They tell you how to not let it happen. And what do? We let it happen. Yep. The one person in this room that can still speak the language they practiced in college, bless you. Bless you. I am not she. What we want to do, ideally, is to take those gifts and start to realize that joined into who I am now is the literal definition of expressing all that we are meant to be. Remember, the only thing God expects of us, to express fully who we are, who we truly are. Those gifts become a part of who we truly are. And as we seek to self-actualize, expand, elevate, be enlightened, whatever your preferred words are, that is how we do this expansion, is by owning these expanded parts of ourselves and claiming them, not as a one-off, not as an accident, not as something that I can only do if someone's shooting at my feet. If you can do it if someone's shooting at your feet, you can do it, right? If you can do it when you're hard-pressed, frankly, you're probably better at it when you're not hard-pressed. And so our intention is to wrap all of this stuff up into our new definition of self and not leave it on the trail behind us. As we re-enter regular life, we don't want to forget the power within ourselves that got us through the journey. We don't come back to the regular world as regular people. We come back to the regular world as empowered, educated people, as people who understand more about ourselves, as people who understand more about the nature of the universe, as people who are able to help guide the next group of married travelers as they prepare for their journey. Have you ever noticed at the beginning of all those stories, there's a wise guide that tells them what to put in the rucksack? Yeah? You're going to need loaves of bread. You're going to need a hatchet. We become that guide for the next group of people that go. But only if we recognize that we have earned that position by embracing all that we have come to know. That clever gentleman, Ernest Holmes, said, "It is only by a combination of the cosmic gift and the individual acceptance that we shall arrive at the best the world can know." We've spent a year finding the cosmic gifts within ourselves and within each other. And now we've got a few weeks to wrap that all into acceptance. It wasn't done for us. It wasn't done to us. It was done by us and through us, co-creating with the divine. And if we can do it once, we can do it again. So this is the invitation. To spend this week feeling into the things that you have successfully noticed about yourself over this past year. Where have you grown? Where have you stayed calm when you used to get irrational? Where have you made a thing that you didn't know how to make before? Where have you gotten braver or stronger or kinder or more open? Do a little self-inventory this week and really work on the idea that these are not things I did. This is who I am. And so it is. I'd like to invite the ministers and practitioners in service and the practitioners in training to take a stand with me as we anchor this in prayer. So good it is to take this moment to recognize that infinite spirit, the divine, God, the beloved one, the oneness of life, that of infinite names and no definition, that it is right here in and through and as every being everywhere, including each within the range of my voice. to know that each of us is imbued perfectly and beautifully with the entire catalog of God good. Each of us is seated with the infinite capacity of life itself, because God cannot be divided or separated or lessened in any way. And so each of us has an infinite catalog of gifts available. How good it is to know that with each breath, each thought, each action, each prayer, each moment of spiritual practice, we are deepening into the truth of who we really are, and that the universe is responding by saying, yes, my beloved, yes, you are beauty, you are abundance. That each of us is hearing that voice inside of us. I am strength. I am intelligence. I am peace. And it is the truth for each of us, to the extent that we say yes right back. So I know whatever is on the heart of each beloved here, that it is met in that place of yes, yes. It's the most natural thing in the world, that each of us is whole and complete and perfect and supplied and sourced, and all is well. I'm so grateful to know this truth and to claim it for each of us as we say together, and so it is.